The job market has been challenging, but do you know why? Meet Nicole A. Dunbar, founder and CEO of Congruency International. Not only is she a life coach, but she's a career and leadership development coach with over 2 decades of experience. Join the conversation as we talk more about what is going on in the world, how is it affecting the job market, and how you can navigate those torrential waters of the market for success. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more. So the first question I asked Nicole is, what has been happening in the past few years in regards to the job market? What keeps you up at night?
That's such a great question. It's funny because in the work that I do, I watch the hiring market so that I can help my candidates that are in career transition make meaningful moves. And I'll tell you, for easily 18 months, up until maybe this summer, I was still struggling with what's really the thing that's causing it to be so hard. Why is it that people that are highly skilled, have the certifications, have the degrees, have multiple degrees sometimes, are still taking 6 months, 9 months, a year, 12, 14, 16 months to land a job? And there was something that I came across. Someone in my network runs a boutique consulting firm. He posted a tiny article that got maybe 20 views on something called the white collar recession. And the moment I saw that, and I started to read through that, and I started to do a little more research on this concept of white collar recession, all the pieces fell into place. What we're seeing right now and have been seeing for easily past, as we said, 18 months, has been an impact on those that are highly skilled professionals that are making strong 5-figure, strong 6-figure salaries and taking longer to find their jobs. And it has to do with all the things that we've seen. It's inflation, right? The mere fact that the eggs that I bought 2 years ago cost 3 times more than they did several years ago. We're in a world where eggs cost $6 and $8 a carton if you don't want them on hormones, right? So it's like, if that's eggs and I eat eggs every week, how much more every other thing, right? And that's just me. And if individuals are dealing with that, so therefore our company. So you've got the inflation component happening. In case you haven't noticed, we are in an election year, right? And it's been a rocky season. Just this process of trying to, one of the parties changed candidates just a few months ago, right? And so companies have had to make decisions based on who they thought the candidate might be, because there are very specific impacts to the financial outlook for corporations in America based on a more conservative versus a more lenient financial policy for business, right? Those things influence things like how much money companies have to put towards hiring and headcount and these sorts of things. And your show in particular, your podcast, as well as everyone that is probably listening to this, would have to have been sleeping under a rock to not recognize the impact of Gen AI, right? Like, literally, you would have to be trying not to understand what's going on. And in the first 18 months when OpenAI started to really come to the forefront, I'll say it was really the beginning of last year that it was starting to become common knowledge on platforms like LinkedIn and what have you. Many of the folks that are in your listening audience would have been in the know already in terms of things like what OpenAI was doing and just pushing that forward. And I use them as an example, not because they are the only one, but they were first to market to make AI accessible to many startups, basically at low or no cost, really. So it started to be getting embedded everywhere, right? There was a lot of speculation. In the first part of last year, there was a lot of us as big tech, pause our hiring, circle our wagons, reorg ourselves, and try to figure out where we need to be spending our money. And sometimes that meant we got to take money from these other things that are working, or they will be working as we plan them to. And now we've got to pause it, close down divisions and the people that are impacted doing that work, and now move them into these other divisions. So there's been a lot of things going on, and I haven't even touched upon geopolitical wars and the things that are happening. We get something like 60%, don't quote me on that one because I need to double check it, but some significant portion of all wheat that comes not only to Europe, but to America comes from Ukraine. What's been happening over there, right? So there are these things that have nothing to do with the everyday that are influencing inflation. They're influencing how businesses are making decisions. They're influencing how we are showing up. And if you have been doing what you've done in the past, particularly in the tech industry, to find a job, it's not working right now. It's not, and it hasn't been. So that's the short answer. but I can talk about this a lot. I know we'll get into it a little bit more. I have more to say, but I want to just pause here. That's a little taste of what's keeping me up at night is all the things, and the fact that the average job seeker may not realize that it may not have anything to do with your skill set. It may not.
Secondly, what core skills are your clients most focused on developing to stay relevant, particularly with the rise of fields like AI, cybersecurity, and cloud computing?
And I think my answer to this is maybe a little bit different than some of the other experts that you have coming on the channel, because so much of the work that I've done in my career, I've been coaching for well over a decade. I have personally helped over 1,000 people in one-on-one career coaching engagements over that time period, go from one job to the next. This is not theory that I'm talking about. Been in the trenches helping people make these moves. And about 40 to 45% of those have been in the career in the tech space, tech industry. Either they were already in it in various different sectors of that and just helping them move. So my answer to this question is going to be a little different. And the answer that I would give you is that it's starting to become more important in general. I do not care whether you are a dock worker in Savannah where there was just a strike, a stop of work, which backed up goods and services coming into our country because in part of the potential of automation coming in and impacting jobs, or if you are a programmer, or if you are an SDR. The bigger piece is getting a general understanding about what are the very specific things that AI is doing, that AI is influencing in your scope or field of work right now. We do not have the luxury right now to sit back and pretend it's not coming, right? If you're going into an interview and you're talking to a company, they're talking to you about opportunities, you want to go in beforehand, even if you don't know if they are very friendly or aggressive towards implementing Gen AI and automation into their processes, or if they are a little bit more late, a little more hesitant on it, or they're taking their time. You don't know that, right? However, you want to go into every interview having already done your background understanding of how is AI influencing, enhancing the type of work that I do, the products and services that this company offers to the marketplace. That's question number one. So that's your own research. Question number two that you want to research out is what are the benefits of Gen AI in this role? And the impact, like how can I become more efficient utilizing these tools? And I think it's so much more than just putting prompts into ChatGPT. I feel like we stop. That's fine. That's awesome. I'm glad that you have that understanding, but there's so much more than just that. So understanding a little bit more about what the marketplace really is looking at as it relates to that. The other side of this is what are the threats? What are the risks of doing this, right? What are the impacts that companies are trying to manage against, whether it's something as simple as dealing with issues related to copyright infringement, whether it's dealing with security and privacy information, right? Last LinkedIn, right? Whether it's a real privacy threat or you're getting dragged through the streets digitally because you tried to put in an opt-in, right? Where people are opted into feeding their content to your AI model, which if you don't know, your audience should know, LinkedIn is owned by Microsoft, has been for over a decade, right? So they have a dog in the fight as it relates to Gen AI. And so all of these things, what are the risks? What are the benefits of using AI in my particular field? What is the company doing as well as it relates to implementing these processes or systems and processes into their day-to-day operations? And if you have the capacity, this kind of goes into something else, but if you have the capacity, who's the competitive set? Who's this company competing against, or what are their competitors doing, and how is that influencing things? Because if you don't believe that part of the reason that there was a hiring freeze in many companies or a slowdown and tens of thousands of highly skilled people got laid off, it was because I am Meta, and I am seeing my direct competitors doing this, or I am Google, and word on the street is I'm behind the game because this OpenAI company has come through and they're trying, right? So they're responding to each other, and that is trickling down to the average person looking for a job. So those are the three things. How's my job impacted? How's the company being impacted? And good and bad, right? Positive and negative, because there is both. And then thirdly, what's the competitive set doing? And how is that influencing the overall marketplace?
How significant have soft skills become for today's leaders? And what specific qualities do you find are most requested or needed to thrive in a changing work environment?
Absolutely. It's a great question. Depending on where the person is in their career trajectory, if they are really looking to stay at the level of individual contributor, which can be a very, very lucrative level, I'm not trying to make it differentiate too badly about this, things like your ability to influence directly and indirectly, your ability to get work done through others, that is your communication skills, your active listening, your ability to read the room and be wise in your decision making, right? So this is also discernment. How do you exercise good judgment depending upon who's in the room and what may be most motivating to them? There's an old saying, if you help enough people get what they want, you will ultimately get what you want. So understanding what the other person really needs and using your discernment and wisdom to actually help them achieve that, which could very well help you achieve what you want, right? Soft skills are incredibly important. And when we talk about tech, unfortunately, none of us are good at everything, right? And one of the things that I feel a lot of times my tech professionals get the bad rap of is being so introverted, not really wanting to talk to people, not really wanting to communicate, or feeling like if you happen to be one of only 5 in a 500-person department that may look like you or talk like you or have your professional background, feeling very isolated. How do you build community and find a way to connect, whether it's within your organization or outside of that, to build those professional relationships? Because yes, it is, and those professional relationships and networking, some of that gets improved by your soft skills.
So, Nicole, what are the top strategies or skills you recommend for building a personal brand that stands out and accelerates a leadership development in today's competitive market?
I love this. I do a lot of work with not only folks in career transition, folks that are looking to in career development, wanting to move to that next level within their company, but also leadership development. So they want to go from individual contributor to leading teams, right? When you're talking about leadership development, there's a couple of things. Number one, it's executive presence, right? And that's one of those phrases that people say that no one really actually knows what it is. Like people are just like, yeah, we got to have executive presence. And, well, what is that, right? At the end of the day, what we're talking about is, again, your ability for those that you're in front of to feel as though you are the competent and obvious leader to move them forward in whatever the initiative is. And there's a lot of that in and of itself could be its own conversation, right? That comes a couple of things I will tell you. It's communication, right? It is how you're presenting, right? In whether it's virtually or in person. And it's such a sticky subject. And at the end of the day, it is a part of it. It's things like how you're presenting yourself. Like, what is it that you're putting forward? It is also sometimes that what we call gravitas, right? And that's just the ability, when you speak, do people listen, right? Is it something that is being influenced? So these are some of the elements that can help you to move forward. One of the first things, real practical for your audience, one of the first things you can do is identify who are the people in your company that have these qualities. And start looking at them. And it maybe they're not in your company. Start looking outside of your company, especially if there are not people that look like you or talk like you in your company. It doesn't have to always be one formula. However, if you don't see it where you are, you got to go and find the models, the role models to actually learn from. And I think the other thing I'll say, one of the things that you asked me this question, one of the things that keeps me up at night when thinking about leadership development and just career development is the fact that a lot of people don't realize that you actually have to work at it. Right? The average person is not going to go from not necessarily being in a leadership role, not having anyone in their immediate community in that leadership role. If you don't have a peer group that is already at the executive or leadership level, the likelihood that you're going to get there by osmosis is very small. So what you don't have in your professional network already, you got to make up in studying and research and skill and modeling and possibly coaching.
What would you advise for younger entry-level candidates versus more seasoned professionals to stand out in today's competitive job market?
I literally 3 days ago, I have a new client that I'm working with who's in career transition, who is Gen Z. And he and I just were having this conversation. And one of the One of the big pain points that I know that Gen Z feels right now is this idea of sacrificing everything for the game or for the company that may or may not be investing back in them, right? And so it's become a very transactional conversation in many circles. And I'm not saying that's wrong, because they have seen the fact that you laid off my mom or my dad after they gave you everything, including my time after school time, and you didn't care about them. So you don't really care about us like you used to. We're not getting pensions and we're not getting all of these things. So why am I going to go ahead and sacrifice all my things? So hashtag boundaries, and all that is fine and good, right? I believe in that. I also believe there's a place to balance it out. Those people that have I have a mentor right now. He has a doctorate degree, multiple master's degrees, has taught at multiple Big Ten universities, has an incredible background. I cannot pay him his hourly rate to invest time in me. I can't. So if you are looking to have that mentorship, recognize that many times the people that you're asking to mentor you are people that are not looking for a transaction from you. They're not, right? So I think that's one of the big things as it relates to, if you're a Gen Z and you're trying to enter the workforce, you're trying to stand out, recognize that the culture is telling you don't give these companies nothing. And we all laugh at the TikToks and we laugh at the reels and the shorts and all of that. But it also informs a mindset. So you go into the workplace saying, pay me what you owe me. And that's cool. And maybe you get that money, but you don't get the networking. You don't get the sponsorship and the mentorship. So understanding that there's a balance to that, and that's part of growing in your career, is looking for that mentorship assertively and aggressively. If it's not in your company, then it's also on you to find it.
Can you talk about the importance of being in the room?
In the market that we're in right now, especially for my tech professionals, if you're in career transition, let's talk about career transition and then just talk about general. If you're in career transition, yes, you can go through the front door, meaning go through and find the website, apply, submit your resume and all the things. And you will do that many, many times. And the return on investment of that time and energy today may be a lot lower than it was 2 years ago, even though your skill set is still marketable and valuable, right? And that's just the nature of the marketplace and things that sometimes have nothing to do with you, etc. When you can go into the rooms where the decision makers are, or the people that are connected to the decision makers are, or the people that hold similar roles to you that would be shoulder to shoulder to you in that organization, and get a better understanding, now you have humanized yourself in the process. Right? You're no longer just another one of what could be 500 resumes that have come through the front door over the weekend. You're now a human, and now they're actually more inclined to give you some insight. Now you have someone to connect with on LinkedIn and to email and to go from there. I know that I also mentioned I wanted to talk about it from when you are not in job search mode. You and I are here today having this conversation because of networking that Ty and I were able to do through a live event that took place in Houston, Texas, where neither he nor I live, right? The whole way that we connect with each other, the more more technologically advanced we become as humans, the more we value the human interaction as well, right? That becomes so important. That's how you connect. Even if you're not comfortable with it, it can still be something. If you're a little more introverted, there are ways that my introverts can really make meaningful connections in an authentic way. Quite frankly, sometimes more authentically and in a deeper way than some folks that just like to talk all the time.
Given the mixed reports on the job market strength, is it really as robust as some sources claim, especially from your perspective of guiding executives and new leaders?
Yeah. This is almost an impossible question to answer in general, right? Because it really depends on what industry and what sector. Let's just set the baseline that technology exists across every single segment or fraction of our society right now. Every way our economy generates income, technology is there. And therefore jobs for technologists are there, right? Whether we're talking healthcare, whether we're talking about the software companies that create the technology for healthcare companies, whether we're talking about banking, hospitality, like every industry, let alone our big tech and our software and hardware development companies that we have out here, right? And so the job market has taken a hit, right? Without question. And let me be very specific. What we have seen in the numbers over the past year is that, yes, there has been growth in some of the more entry level or lower or hourly rate roles. So we're talking about things like retail and some of these other types roles that may not necessarily be high ticket roles. However, where we have seen softness and ghost jobs, right? Fake postings that are there that nobody actually ever gets hired for, which is very frustrating to job seekers appropriately. So that has been softer, right? Across the board, when we're talking about jobs that are making that six-figure mark, that's been a little bit softer in terms of not just the postings, but the response and the hiring of those postings. Last month, where it's now October, so in September, we started to see better numbers coming through here in the US than we have seen in quite some time in terms of placements. This month, I did see, even just this morning, just noticed that the new unemployment filings are down the first time in several months as well. So there are some things that may be evening out, but that feels like nothing to someone that's been in a job search for a year, right? So are there job opportunities? Yes. Are there more? I will tell you that we're in the second best time of the year in any year to hire a job, to find a job, right? Between Labor Day to about Thanksgiving in any year tends to be the second best time of the year to find a job. A lot of different reasons for that. A couple of just human behavior reasons, right? Summertime, a lot of times people are busy. The decision makers that need to be in the room to go through the hiring process to interview you, they are distracted. Right? They may be on vacation or their team is on vacation and they've got to be filling in or making sure that work keeps moving forward, getting kids back to school, maybe for the first time taking kids to college, first time putting kids in preschool or middle school or high school. Those real life things that impact humans are taking place the back half of summer. So if you were looking at a job search all summer long saying no one's talking to me, it may have nothing again to do with you. It could be the fact that the marketplace is distracted. And this isn't a regular year, not an election year, not a high inflation year, not a year where almost every industry on the planet is dealing with massive digital transformation, right? Not when we are dealing with geopolitical forces that are driving up everything from the price of groceries to our ability to have microchips for the tools that we are trying to build for AI in this country, right? Or batteries or what have you. Like, things influence everything. So right now, there's a lot of things that are evening out. I am having, in my work with clients, I'm seeing more people find jobs to apply to and getting responses faster. I am seeing that. Want to make it better though? It is not just about going through the front door. You must have a networking job search strategy and an effective one, right? Not just spraying and praying your resume to 50 of your closest friends and neighbors and saying, hey, I'm looking for a job. Let me know if you see anything. That's not networking. That ain't it.
In a distracted market, which industries are you seeing as the most resilient for job seekers, especially those in tech, healthcare, and green energy?
So there's a couple that come to mind immediately. Not as sexy, but logistics. Absolutely. That's been one. How do you get goods from one side of America to the other side, right? Whether we're talking about the trucks, the ships, trains, all of that. But it's not sexy. It doesn't get headlines, right? But the people that are in those companies, that has had some good stability over quite the last several years. As again, Gen AI steps in and automation starts coming into the conversation, we might start seeing some different things happening. Again, I mentioned the fact that I live on the southeast side of the country, and in Savannah, Georgia, there was just a strike for the folks that work right there at the ports because they're saying, listen, we want our contracts readjusted because of the potential of these things. So until recently, I would have said that industry. Healthcare, I think, is also still an industry. You've got to really be thoughtful about how you're approaching healthcare. What's the space? What's your authentic interest? And what segment, vertical within healthcare, do you have some interest in, right? Are we talking about healthcare tech, right? Every single healthcare organization on the planet is using technology and has additional rules more so than the average company due to HIPAA and these sorts of things. So those are two industries that come to mind. Let me tell you a couple industries that have been deeply impacted, because I feel like the other side of it might be a better conversation. Again, there was a time where I could give you, a year and a half ago, there was a time I could say these industries hands down. But every single industry in our nation that influences our economy is being impacted in small and great ways. Every single one. So what I say today may not be relevant 5 in 3 months or 6 months from now because of the speed of digital transformation. So I'm not trying to not answer, but I'm trying to just say what's more important, I think, is understanding something I said earlier. It's understanding the fact that I now must be aware, not just of how to do my job, but if there's an industry that I enjoy or that I want to stay in, what is the impact of digital transformation on that industry? And what does the future look like in that industry? What does the future look like for the type of work that I do in my industry? And how do I make sure that I am preparing myself not just for today, but for 6 months or a year from now? And that requires some research and some thought. Industries that have been rocked. We saw the fintech finance industry has had a rough time, right? They're starting to pull out of it now, but yeah, they've been rocked. Why? Because when the Fed raises interest rates, people stop borrowing money, right? How does the finance industry make money? By the fee, right? So there's a trickle down. That's why I'm saying it's not just one little thing. So it's all of these different pieces together. Another industry that we have seen, if you're in the digital marketing space, right? If you're in that space, that's been a tricky space. If you're an agency, you've really got to be thoughtful about how you are going to survive, right? Because every 5 seconds, there is some new startup that is claiming to be able to do all the things that your 5-person team or 500-person team used to do to help companies market and create content and automate content and the like, right? So let alone clearly the one that starts to become more obvious are things like copywriters. Now, for a while, that was getting to be scary. But now there's a resurgence because we still at this point are seeing the quality of the content that comes from humans versus the quality of the content that comes completely from Gen AI. There's a difference in quality. Any thinking person can see it, right? So you still need that human to put that spirit back into it. Will that be the case a year from now? I don't know. Right. So I'm not trying not to answer, but we are literally in the middle of what we're talking about. That is, the sands are shifting, right? And we can either stare at the shifting sands and freak out and sink in the midst of it, or we can start taking an eye towards the future. And you can't control what the industries are going to do. What you can control is your knowledge and understanding about how companies are starting to think, how they have been thinking, and what makes sense for me going forward, which is why you network in person, which is why you go to the conferences, which is why you talk to people that are in your space already that maybe have been in it longer. That's how you get that understanding. It's no longer enough just to go to the boot camp, get the certification, and apply for that 6-figure job. This ain't that anymore. It's not.
Now that was it. Thank you so much for watching. Did you enjoy the show? Let us know in the comments section below. And if you have further questions, stay tuned. We'll be bringing her back on for a live conversation where she could answer your most burning questions. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell notification so you can know the next time we're going live. In the meantime, check out these videos that I believe you'll find helpful. Take care, family.